Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Kavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm really pleased to be looking at an app that I've been waiting for a few months now, and that is Fundamental. I'm a big fan of Hainbach, really like his YouTube channel. I'll maybe put a link to a video above, maybe a link to his video on Fundamental. And I would say that this video is complementary to that. I think his is very interesting and inspirational. In this video, I'm going to try and do more like an in-depth tutorial showing you knob by knob how to use this thing. So DivKid also did a very good video as well, by the way, well worth checking out. Now, before I go any further, let me say I've got a few codes to give away, a few free copies of the app to give away. If you're watching this video in the first 2 days of release, look at the pinned comment at the top of the YouTube comments section for the details of how to win. And if you're watching it after that, it probably means that you're not a subscriber, you didn't get notified, so subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to get notified. I often have free apps to give away with videos. Okay, so in the video today, as I said, I'm going to focus on how to use the app. I'm going to go in really detailed, and that means that at certain times it will be much more informative than it will be performative. Because this has 8 oscillators, but I'm often going to work with just one, because that way you're going to be able to see really, really clearly what is happening. So I hope you find it useful. Now, let's first just listen to a few examples of things that this can do. So let's see, actually not that one, let's do this, okay. So here we're getting a kind of nice, gentle, sort of pad-like, mysterious, cinematic, but with a bit of bite to it. A little bit of distortion, which is coming from this gain modulation here. So that's one thing we can get. Let's see what we got here. This is one of Sinan's patches, timbral. Really nice drone. So this is a fantastic drone machine. We can, here we got a drone that has this nice movement and a nice bass oscillator coming in, really dirty sounding. For some reason these preset oscillator frequencies are not showing accurately. There are a few bugs in this app, but the developer is sorting them out pretty quickly, so I'm confident that things are going to be sorted soon. Let's look at a default preset. Now, first thing, so we press default here, okay. Let's look at the presets. So here, if we click here, we get 4 different preset menus. So Blush, Hainbach, Fundamental Factory, Omri Cohen, and let's choose Fundamental Factory presets. We press L to load. Now the manual goes into detail about how you save presets. To be honest, it's a bit of a hassle. You've got to sort of make copies of the banks and things like that. It's one of the aspects of the app that could be a lot better. I'm not going to go into that here. You can read how to do that in the manual. Personally, I think it's much easier, at least for my workflow. I do stuff in AUM. I'm just saving my presets in here. Very easy to do. So that would be my advice for saving presets. But if you want to know how to save presets in the app, take a look at the manual. I'm not going to go into everything. So press L to load a preset. So here I'm clicking default, and we can see here, okay, we've got the 8 oscillators and we can see the frequency of each oscillator. And then here, this is a very important button. When you first open the app, it's not going to make any sound. You've got to press this button to get it to make sound. So we've got sound, not very interesting, right? It's default patch. Let's take a look at what's going on here. I'm going to take down everything except, I'll use my finger. Here we've just got one oscillator. It's oscillator 2. And so what is the difference between gain and boost? Well, the boost just boosts the volume of the gain. The gain is what's given us the real nice distorted thing. High gain on the low frequency oscillators will get these lovely distorted tones. So although this is the original piece of equipment, it's a sine generator, but with high gain on lower frequencies in particular, it moves completely out of sine and into a lot of nice distortion. That's because we have the vintage model selected, and there's also a pure sine wave one. To me, the vintage one is much more interesting. So here, F, we can fine-tune. Oh, wrong one, number 2. So you can see over here, the frequency is changing. Another thing we can do is tap here and enter values with the keyboard. Here we have a panning. Right, left. Now, here for this I'm going to look at another instance. Let's see. Okay, let's do this one. So here we have the envelope section. We can set the curve. We can set the time. Again, click and type to change that. This is a gate. So the gate is just on or off. There are no envelopes. With this one, the gain will move up to the point we set. We set these points by clicking here. If I click here, for example, this will change to this position. So it'll move up there and then it will sustain. And then when we untrig, it'll fall back down again. Now this one, have a listen. Here it'll move up, and then it'll all go back down, and then it'll untrigger. And I like the loop. So we can change the amount of randomness here. And we can, if I turn trig, remember it will still finish the envelopes. Now, if I set everything up the same, actually that's too high, that's going to cause problems. If I put all of those up high, it's going to kick this into the red big time. So let's see. These are more or less on the same level, not exactly. Let's take a look. So you see now, with no randomization here, they're going more or less in sync. If I click here, this one's going to come up higher, but it's still going to do each movement in 3 seconds. If I click very low, for example here, it's going to move very slowly because it's got a shorter distance to travel. It's still going to do it in 3 seconds, but it's going to move slower. So that's how this section works. As I say, curves here, linear, exponential, logarithmic. Okay. Now, let's look over here. So here we have our modulation depth. So this section and this section are intimately related. So here, this is frequency modulation depth. And again, the sliders correspond to the oscillators. So this is the gain modulation depth for oscillator 1. If I click here, it's now frequency modulation, pan modulation. Now, also these sliders set the minimum and maximum values for gain and so on. Let me show you. For example, here, you see it's no longer going down to the low gain levels because the minimum gain is set higher. Or I can take this down. Now it's not going to get very loud. And this is separate. See here, the slider has reverted to a full one. So the slider settings are remembered separately for gain, frequency, and pan. Now, at the moment, this is one of the problems with the app, that the interface is just the desktop interface ported to iOS. And to be honest, that does not work that well because here, the natural thing as an iOS user would be to use your thumb to move this slider, for example. But I found, and others have found, that very often when moving this, you accidentally trigger this. Or over here, for example, when I'm doing things here, I often accidentally trigger this one on and off. So that's kind of disastrous when that happens and you don't want it to. But I've talked to Sinan about this and he is going to make some changes to the interface to deal with that, so that's great. These things are annoying. They're not a deal breaker for me because I like the app, but I really have to say to any developers out there, bring in your stuff from desktop to iOS. Do a good beta test, please. Get people who are used to iOS to come in and check out and let you know what users expect. It's really important. Okay. But developer is really good, extremely responsive. We had a lot of discussion about different things yesterday. I think he's a great developer, and I'm really happy that he's bringing his stuff to iOS. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to go back over to this one, maybe. No. Let's go here. No, here. Okay. Hard to keep track. So that's boost, not that interesting. Bring up gain. Now I'm going to show you gain modulation using the depth sliders and using the settings over here. So that's frequency modulation. Hang on. Let's do that later. Double tap to put that back. Okay, gain. So here we can adjust rate. This is kind of like a master control for that level. If this is down at 0, no matter what we do here, it's not going to make any difference. So this will basically, this scale will basically control how deep the depth is able to go. If we have low values here, even if we put these sliders right to the end, it's not going to be all that noticeable. Now, the smooth function is quite interesting. That basically applies a kind of low-pass filter to make the fast transitions smoother. So to hear that, it's good to get a fast rate going. You see how the attack becomes a lot less noticeable. So that's how gain modulation works, and there are a bunch of different algorithms in here that represent different types of randomness in general. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. I mean, some are just waveforms. Right, so here we have different waveforms just, and you know, we can use an envelope follower. Here we have all these different types of randomization and so on. So these will also alter our sound. Let's have a little listen, for example. The sliders here will change depending on what you select here. Let me go over, let's get some waveforms, for example. Oh, I like this. So the central point will turn off the depth for that oscillator. When we put it up here, we're basically multiplying with positive values the output here in the scale, and when it's down here, it's going to be multiplying it with negative values. So I love this, and I love the visualization of it. So here we're basically seeing, you know, there are 8 lines here. So we're seeing that what each oscillator is doing. It's really cool. So we have those for frequency as well. So let's hear that on frequency. Again, you know, we have rate. And a bunch of different types of randomization and so on. You need to play around with these sliders. They're all quite different, really, in how they behave. This is a lot of fun to play around with, though. Actually, that's for this one. We can get really slow with the rates, down to 0.01. Great. need to play around with the sliders. Nothing coming up there, not sure what's going on. I have a minimal understanding of how some of these work, but you can hear what they're doing to the sound. You know, the essence of these is that random isn't just random. The manual goes into this. So this kind of stochastic modulation, you know, we have different types of random, right? Like the manual explains, the kind of random you have when you flip a coin is totally different from the sort of random that you have when a light bulb has some power connection problem and the light bulb is switching itself on and off unpredictably. This is going to be a completely different kind of randomness to a coin, right? I mean, a coin only has two sides. That limits how random things can be. So there's a lot of complicated mathematical modeling that goes into setting all these things up. It's really interesting. Let's see, pan modulation. Let's maybe bring in a few more. Let's have a look what's going on in the pan section. Put the scale up. It's also related to what's going on over here. So the modulation will be relative to the settings on the pan sliders. Let's look at a couple of presets and see what kind of things they're doing. So again, when you switch preset, you're going to have to press trig unless the preset has been saved in a state where trig is on. So here we're getting a lot of pan modulation, we can see. So we could go down and play with the pan settings down here. No frequency modulation. We've got some gain modulation. Let's have a listen. Let's turn it up. This is a bug. I mean, it's playing this. Maybe it's not a bug. You know, I think when you switch preset, it continues playing because the envelope here hasn't stopped. So it's still, it's changed the content, but it's still going by the envelope maybe. Anyway, slightly strange behavior, but maybe it's not a bug. So we can see here, you know, this H ratio, haven't talked about that one yet. So that is harmonic ratio. Now this is a good time to talk about this layout. So we have two layouts. User set, where the oscillators are free. And if we change oscillator 5, for example, It's not changing what any of the other ones do. And then we have harmonic, in which case all of the oscillators are related. And let me just take down the H ratio modulation. So here, see if I change this one, all of these are changing because they're all basically quantized together. And how that is exactly depends on this slider here. So this is the ratio between the intervals. If we put this to 1, they should all be at the same, they should all be in unison basically. With 2, they should be going up by octaves. But I'm trying to see, is that happening? It doesn't look like it is. I'm trying to think why. Let's try another patch. Let me go to a default patch. I'll try and show you using that. So it's probably because the scale, right? Okay, that's another thing that confounds things. I'll explain that in a second. Okay, let me press harmonic here and let me put a value of 2. Okay, and let me turn it on. So do you see here how the second oscillator is basically an octave up? It's double the frequency value. That's a relationship of octaves. So by adjusting this, we can change it so we can do things in intervals of fourths, fifths, you know, minors, minor, whatever. This is something, if you don't understand, you need to look up on Wikipedia or somewhere, harmonic intervals, music intervals, things like that. This is very interesting, actually. So here, we're getting this interrelationship. Now, over here, we can quantize things to a scale. So for example, here we can choose a major scale. Or, I don't know, pentatonic. Let's look for one that's doing something a little bit more chordy. Let me go through some of these scales. See, minor. Let's change to a major. Back to a minor. Pentatonic. Got some nice unusual ones. Indian. Some different modes. These other settings are related to MP, so I'll look at those in my next video. So I think I've pretty much covered everything here. I don't think there's anything that I've missed. Let's just listen to a couple of presets and see what's going on in them. Let's look at some of Hainbach's presets, the man himself. So again, we press L to load. So we're getting this envelope automation with some randomness. Got a lot of gain modulation stuff going on. Let's see what happens when we play with the rate. Hear that? See how this is changing? Really nice mellow and melodic one, this. Frequency modulation. Okay, let's I'll bring this down first. So here we're changing the rate of the frequency modulation. Let's hear that with smoothness. You see that when you put a lot of smoothness, you're basically temporarily cutting it out completely, really. And you can see that visually here. These visual indicators are fantastic. Let's try another one. Right, as I thought, yeah, this is quantized to a scale. So we can easily go in and change. And I mean, if you're playing a certain, let's say you want to make this fit into a song that you're working on, you can work out what pitch is going to work for you here. See the ratio over here? So you need to remember that what is shown here may not actually reflect what you're hearing. If you have the scale on, it's going to change that, but you won't see anything changed here. Most of what's going on here is because of these really fast envelopes. So let's hear that a little bit slower. Let's look at the harmonic ratio slider. So turn scale up first. Oh, I like this. So you see here we're doing various randomizations on the ratios between the oscillators. Love this. playing with the gain rate. Very nice spacious one here. 6-second envelope. Let's try it with some randomization. It's also pretty cool. Again, the envelopes are just doing their own thing, right? Very nice. Ah, this is not a loop. Changing the curves. That's kind of cool. Okay, well, I think I'll leave it there. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I haven't mentioned. Don't think so, really. I think that's pretty much it. So, as I say, I'll be back with another video showing the MP functions, assuming I can get it to work properly on my C-board. I'm sure it will work properly because Sinan told me that he tested it with C-board before. So either it's user error, which I don't think it is, or it's a small bug which will be easily fixed. So I'll probably be back with that in a couple of days. All right, everyone. Very interesting app. It's really different, really different. And as I said, it's not just a sine generator. These, because of the gain, they're not just sine waves. You can read more about that in the manual. The modulation section is great. Of course, we can also modulate the modulation using something like MIDI LFOs. Maybe I'll go into that in the next video. Didn't end up getting time to do it in this one. I love the envelope section. That is something that seems quite innovative to me. These sliders, although I don't like how they're triggered too easily, that's a really cool feature. And just this this gain frequency pan and H ratio modulation, really, really brilliant. I'm just looking while I talk here to see if there's anything else I've forgotten. Scale quantization, love that. A really useful feature. I think the ability to keep the oscillators doing their own things or make them harmonically related is really cool. And I think it's very cool to be able to modulate that with the H ratio stochastic modulators. So definitely one for the experimentalists among us. But as I showed at the beginning, it's also one that even people into more mainstream things could use, record and sample. So and my volume's down for that. So don't forget that possibility too. All right, everyone, thanks for watching, and thanks a lot to Sinan for his help yesterday in giving me information about a few things and being extremely responsive to bug reports and so on. I'm sure that the issues that are there are going to be fixed, hopefully, soon. All right, I know some fixes are on the way already, so all right, thanks a lot, everyone. See you in the next video.